All right, guys, we're going to do a couple of gun reviews. We're going to be painting the roof of this. I already did this once. As soon as I got done painting it, I noticed two more cracks in the filler on this roof from last time when there was an issue with the roof. I used a different filler than I remember now. I used a different filler than I normally use. I did not use AG47. I used Auto Art filler, and it did not handle the stress of this roof. And it wasn't on too thick or anything. It was just the filler and the stress of all this weight moving around and all that, and the beacon being up there. It just didn't handle that. So I'm going to go ahead and I fixed these other two cracks. They were right here and right over here. So I figured before the heat comes, got to do this out in this weather. That thing's too tall to go a lot of places, and I tried to paint it last time. I painted it in the other side of the shop with the lift, and it's hard to see in there, and I ended up getting a couple runs in it. So we'll see if I can get a little better over here this time and not have any issues. So we've got two new spray guns on the channel called the Trigger Man. Okay, if you guys want to learn how to spray paint, he's got one of the best spray painting channels there is, called Trigger Man. He's out of South Florida, and what I like about his channel is he doesn't have temperature controlled spray booths. He's got very basic place he's doing work at. His spray booth is kind of, looks like almost a homemade spray booth. Same thing I like about Sprayway Customs. He's kind of a backyard type painter, and you can learn a lot from these guys because they got to work with elements. You know, their booth control, the amount of flow that's through their booth is not as good as some of the other guys. He's got it looks like a real spray booth, but maybe it was made or something. It looks a little bit different. So he had one of these spray guns, and I was watching him paint with it, and man, I was surprised at how little fog that you get with this spray gun right here. And then the mini gun, I really was looking for a good 1.0 minigun, because the 1.0s have a lot bigger fan. The 0.8s are kind of small, and it's really hard to keep overlap. It's like using a spray can almost to paint. So I was looking for a good 1.0, and Porphus sent me out both of them at the same time. So I was like, awesome. So I can try them out. After looking at this, taking a real good close look at it, the quality of everything on this gun is really like a pro line gun. This is not a cheap gun. Okay, this is it has this extremely coarse threads here so that you can keep that nice and clean. The head comes off with a couple of turns. It's got, let's look at the nozzle. If you look here, it's really well machined. The feel of it is very, and even lightened up this part to try and make it as light as possible. It has the typical, look here, even the tip, it's got a little V to it. Really good spray gun. So yeah, this thing looks like it, and like I said, I was watching him spray with that. Really nice. He also had this one on his channel, and I was looking at how nice that was, and I've been looking for a good quality 1.0. So we're going to give it a try here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the base on with this, because I've only got a little bit to do, and then I'm going to use this one for the clear, and we'll see how it turns out. So these things here, the quality of every little thing on it is really professional. It's not a cheap made gun. So all these little things here, the tightness of everything, it doesn't feel loose. Most of your minis have real fine threads here. This has got the nice coarse threads, so you can clean them. You want the coarse threads on your nozzle. It's got the round area. There's no cone You don't want that cone on cone fit. It has a seal around here, so that's the best way that the system to be made. And if you look here, look how many holes are in that nozzle. So it's really, they made something special with this gun. Now the weak point on these is the pot, but you're probably going to use a disposable system if you're going to use this as a professional gun. But it is a worthy plastic. It's not the cheap plastic. It's a decent plastic. Now if you look at the link in the description, these are not cheap. These are not, you know, $50 guns. This one I think is in the $250 range. This is in about $125 range. So, but so far, this looks like a way more expensive gun. These good minis in the 1.0, typically around $250. Something like this, it's a professional line gun, is at least $500. So these are high-end guns. These are not cheap ones, and that is important, especially when you're painting large vertical surfaces like a Volkswagen bus. Absolutely important to get low over or a nice finish. VW buses are not forgiving at all. If you get a little tiny bit of orange peel, it looks like a giant orange. And for this review, we're also going to be using a non-forgiving material, which is the all I have in clear right now is I have some Tamco clear. It's not that easy to spray, so getting it to lay down real smooth is a little tougher because it's very high solids. So we're giving this thing a real good shot, and if I can get it to look good. And the thing again, why this is a good gun for home use, okay, you need a full compressor for it because it's a higher air volume. It's not going to be your LVLP, you know, use your little 2 horsepower compressor. Those guns, a lot of times they get giant fog. Some people go, oh, well, I can spray with a smaller compressor, but you have to turn the pressure up a little higher with those guns. And with the pressure up higher, a lot of times they make really bad fog and you can't see. And that's another important thing. If you're painting at home, you know, you really need a 5 horsepower 60 gallon to spray with this, to spray a car. Really you do. Okay, and you guys are trying to get around it, that's fine. But if you have a 5 horsepower 60 gallon, you'll have no problems keeping up with this gun. So you do need a little bigger compressor with this. But this is a high-end gun, really good performance. Low fog is what we're looking for, guys. Low fog. If you're going to spray in a garage at home, you don't want your neighbors all going, oh my God, what's going on over there? Okay, right? That's what you're looking for. And in order to get a good, smooth finish, you got to have the pressure up a little higher, and that's the issue you have a lot with a lot of the spray guns. This one here is almost a low fog spray gun, but it's on full air amount. They do have a LVLF spray gun, but it does not spray as nice as this one. From what I've looked at on his videos, you're welcome to go to his channel, check out a couple of those videos and see if you're really looking for a spray gun. He's got a bunch of good ones, but we're going to give this thing a shot, see how it works, and then go from there. Comes with a crappy little service kit. I mean, the brush might be useful, little wrenchy thing. The Allen wrench and the star wrench might be needed for taking some of it apart. No regulator, but don't use this little filter thing. Those things restrict the paint going down in there and usually cause more issues than benefits. So stay away from that little filter. No, don't use that. Here's the kit for this one. Same kind of thing, you know. Almost every spray gun comes with something like that. And it's well boxed. They even had it in bags, you know, like this. So just so you know. Oh, one more thing real quick. If you buy one of the guns, let's see which one. If you buy the minigun, they donate 5% to UNICEF. feed some people. All right? Pretty cool. Yes, I tested the gun out, and it seemed to spray pretty amazing. If you can see the edge of the fan, it looks so atomized. So I'm trying some different pressures or different settings. Realized it was a little too much. I don't want to put it on too heavy, because you can, if you put it on too heavy, sometimes it didn't matter. I didn't want to test it on anything. I just wanted to start spraying a little bit. Readjust it and get it better. Put on a nice light coat. It's really even, and I think just really was good with materials. Hardly used anything. And then I was noticing there's like some weird dry looking stuff, and it wasn't from the spray gun. It was actually the primer. When I was, it was kind of frustrating. I was sanding it, and sanding it with pretty fine grit, but for some reason it wanted to pinhole when I guess the primer did. So it doesn't usually do that, and so I don't usually have that problem. But because I used spray can primer, I didn't want to get out the other. I should have gotten out my good 2K primer and primed it with that, and then there'd probably been no issues. I just didn't want to mix up anything. It's just kind of a touch-up thing. Supposed to do just a real quick spray job, but you can see that dryness there that was just sucking it in. So I just stop up here a little bit and sand it, and I'll show you more about that. But the spray gun itself just worked amazing. That little spray gun has a decently wide fan for a mini, and it I didn't have it turned up very much. I started turning it up a little bit more as I went. I just wanted to put it on a little bit dry in the beginning. All right, this is kind of pissing me off a little bit because it has nothing to do with the spray gun. If you can see here, there's these dry spots, or I think it's like pinholes in the primer, but you know, I've never had this problem. I've used this primer many times. It was just kind of weird when I was prepping it and I ran the scratchy pad over it. It was always rough going over that, and then now it's doing this crap, and I've sanded the daylights out of it before. I just don't want that to come out in the clear. So you know what you do is you just, while the base coat's dry, just sand it some more, keep sanding it and building it if you ever have something like that happen. Yeah, stuff like this happens every once in a while. It's just, you never want stuff like this to happen. Just don't paint, because there's always something. This side had a little bit. This is all tolerable right here. I think that'll be okay. Doesn't look that bad, but this side here, this is just driving me nuts. It's way worse. So I'll just sand that down again, sand it down 2 or 3 times, whatever, build it on it, and just keep putting that on like it's a coat of primer paint. It'll work. I've done it many times that way, but I haven't had this problem in particular. I just should have used better primer. I should have used some 2K urethane. I didn't, so I used some spray can medallion, and usually that does work fine, but not today. So yeah, I was putting a few more layers on there, and I did sand it again after this, and just didn't show that on video, but just did it a couple more times until it started to look smoother. And then this side was, you can still see it, and so I just started loading it on a little heavier, kind of filling it in, and not really the right way to do it, but it does work. So I went over that again, just kind of puddling it into the pinholes, and then just let it set and come back in it and sand it with wet sand with 1000 until it was pretty smooth and you couldn't really feel them anymore. So that's what I ended up doing. It fixed it. Yes, even notice here I turned up I was actually playing with the air pressure a little bit, and then I turned down the air pressure and turned up the volume, and so that I could just keep a little more material, a little less air, and it just seemed to work really well. You can see there, just edges of the didn't leave any heavy edges or anything. Really good spray gun. Did a great job. Again, I'm kind of soaking it right now, getting it filled in. I think I sanded it one more time and then went ahead and reshot it and then put a little clear on. Well, that's drying after a few coats. This thing sprays amazingly good. It has a nice soft edge fan. It doesn't have any heavy marks in the middle. It doesn't make a lot of dust. It doesn't use a lot of air. So you could use a smaller compressor with this gun, no problem. Yeah, I'm going to use this to do some complete ATMs, I think. It's very fine spray, beautiful. Man, I'm real happy with this. So, I mean, there might be ones that are better, but I haven't tried them yet. This is probably the best one I've used yet. Finally got that weird dry stuff out of there. I don't know. I sanded it. I put guide coat on it, sanded it really good with 400. And then when I just ran over it with the scratchy pad, I was like, what the heck is dragging right there? And sure enough, that was telling me that something was wrong. So anyway, just put some base on there, look at it, make sure it's not going to show up, and then hopefully we won't get anything. I don't want to have to buff this roof, you know. I'm not looking for a 10 out of 10, guys. I just want it to be painted and not have cracks in it, and the cracks were going all the way to the metal, and it was making the roof rust. That was not making me happy. So anyway, that's what I'm trying to fix. So we're gonna mix up some clear. I'm gonna let this dry for a little bit here, and I'll tack it again, tack rag it, and shoot some on there, and hopefully I can get it on before all this. I had to screw around with this stuff for a good hour or two, and now the wind will probably pick up, and it'll be fun. Let's see how it turns out. All right, not to follow the gun. Really like the gun. The mini gun's amazing. That thing sprays really good, nice and even. See how the bigger gun does, and it doesn't leave that much of a cloud. It's really, really tight. It's weird. I've never sprayed with one like that, so it's cool. Like it. See, I was just kind of getting a feel for it. I just tried different ways to spray it. I figured out a better way to spray it the next coat. I was just kind of getting some on there. It's kind of a pain because you got to use a ladder on this thing to reach the middle, and you have to actually really you got to be reached way out far to be able to get to the center of that roof. So on a ladder. So yeah, it's a little tough to paint these roofs. So it's, you know, because it's kind of high up and got the lift in the way for the back. So it's, you know, you can't get the gun in. See, I got to shoot at an angle like that. A little hard to get back there. So I didn't want to get a run back there. So it was a little tad dry back there, but still it evened out. You'll see when it's dry later. The gun sprayed this just with ease, and I started out with higher pressure. If you notice, there's a little bit of fog, not much, but when I started out at like almost 2 bar, which gave it a really fine spray. Really, I mean, you could easily just shoot it with no orange peel with that. I backed it off a little bit because I just was getting a pretty good sized cloud, and I took it down to I think about 20 just to see if it would do it, and if it would still be pretty well atomized, and I was surprised it actually did still work at a little bit lower pressure. I mean, if you're in a spray booth, you'd want to keep this thing up at full pressure, and then you could just easily spray with without getting any orange peel at all. I could just see how it would work. So I think this coat here, I'm wetting it down a little bit. Of course, this is the second coat, and it didn't take long to dry because it was getting pretty hot out already. And so I decided to just do the sides like this first, and it was a lot easier to do. And then do the center, because then I figured, well, I'd have something wet around the edges so that, like the first coat, I just got it on there, you know, and just shot it on kind of even. And then the second coat, I want to get a little bit wetter, so I'm going to go ahead and really make sure that I'm overlapping exactly 75% and all that stuff, and putting on a little bit heavier. Of course, the first coat came out super smooth. There was like almost no orange peel. It looked great. One smooth coat on there, and then it dried pretty quickly just because of the weather out. This clear likes to be in hot weather, so those are key things. But you can see that the atomization is really good, and then notice there's not that much fog at all, and it's not windy really. There's no wind hardly, so and that's all, you know, that's right off the gun, just very little fog from it, and still a nice, I mean, a really good efficiency transfer to the panel, and excellent atomization was just really good. I actually like this one a little better than my Techno Pro Light. You know, I just like the way it atomizes a little bit better at low pressures. At full pressure, both of guns are really good, but there was definitely less fog with this gun, even at full pressure. The Techno Pro Light's a fog machine, it's super, super fine. You know, it's still doing the efficiency transfer that it's necessary, but the super fine fog will make it so you can't see unless you're in a good airflow spray booth. And you know, obviously we don't have one, so even my regular spray booth isn't a really good flow. So anyway, this thing would not fit in a tent, you know, in the inflatable spray booth that I have. It would not fit. It's too tall. So anyway, I didn't even want to get it out for this, just for roof. I was just going to actually spot and blend this, and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to shoot the whole roof so I can try out this gun. But yeah, it looks beautiful right there, and take a look at it later. Really, I think definitely worthy spray gun. I'm going to be using this in a lot more videos coming up, so you guys can see. I just had a little clear left, and I was like, yeah, maybe I can smooth that a little bit, It was still wet back there, so it could just soak into it. I want to make sure I got my grip rail a little bit of, make sure I got it, you know, it's pretty good, easy to get it dry. So it's still drying. I don't think I'm going to have any runs, orange peel, anything. This thing, it makes it pretty effortless. I think that's, I mean, I got a little bit of orange peel in the back because I turned the pressure down. I noticed at about 17 pounds, 17, 18, 19 pounds, somewhere in there, I'm not sure. When I had it all the way up to 28, it makes a kind of a heavy fog. Kind of like the TechnoPro light, but it's nothing, it's less than that. The TechnoPro light has kind of a fog to it, but I mean, if you can run it at 28 pounds, it sprays really nice. I mean, you can't argue with that when it comes out of the gun like that. This one is definitely right up there with that quality, and it seemed to be a little bit easier for me to spray with. So even at 17, 18 pounds, where I usually spray my TechnoPro light when I'm using it, so I don't use it that much because it's kind of foggy. Okay, this thing was a lot less fog at those pressures, but it didn't atomize quite enough to get no orange peel, which, you know, you guys at home, you're not going to probably get that. Okay, you're probably going to have a little bit of orange peel no matter what gun you use. Well, we will see in a few minutes what this does. That clear is really hard to, a little bit more difficult to spray than some. It likes warmer weather like this when you're using all the slow stuff. If you use the colder, you know, if it's cold, and it doesn't, it likes to run and stuff, so it's a little trickier to do in the cold. It likes it when it's hot. You can just put it on nice and heavy, and it just dries, and then you're looking good. So, hear that? Has clicks there. All the knobs move really nice and easy. I'm going to say that this gun is really a nice gun. I mean, if you're looking for something super high-end, that you don't want to spend the entire high-end money on, this thing would probably get you there. Okay, this is a super nice, super high-end gun. I sprayed it. I tried it at 2-bar, 29 pounds, and at 29 pounds, if you could do it in like a spray booth, I'm certain that you would get really, really, really clean, almost no orange peel in your clear. Almost any clear. This thing just broke up that heavy clear like it was nothing. It was almost like I was using cheaper clear, and it just broke it up, sprayed it on real smooth. And again, I was really happy about this Mini. The Mini had a really nice even fan pattern. I could see this thing spraying metallics just no problem, really nice and smooth. The base that I was spraying was the cheapest base I could get. It's really cheap stuff, a high tech, and it didn't care. You know, cheap base, you know, good base. I'm sure if I painted the best stuff you can get, this thing would go through the gun really nice. I could just tell by the fan pattern, it was super, super fine and clean. There was no, it wasn't sputtery or anything like that. It was just like, just super clean. If you could see that in the video, I don't know. Did get a couple bugs in here. That's not the spray gun's fault. Once I let this dry, I'll just kiss it with the buffer probably. Oh yeah, she's wet. I put it on nice and heavy. Second coat. I got rid of those pinholes. There's still some over there. Maybe it was just too hot when I sprayed that primer, or it wasn't shook up good enough. Something wasn't right. I don't know. I don't usually have that problem though. That's weird. Never had that primer pinhole like that, but it can happen to any of them. It's a lacquer primer, and lacquer primers like the pinhole. As long as you know, there's tricks to it. Yeah, that looks good. That looks really smooth. There's some pinholes. You can see them right there. And the back, sides, all that looks even and smooth. We'll see if that stretches out in the back. Maybe it will. Well, I don't know what those little tiny bugs are, but man, this thing is slick as can be. That looks great. Except for that. Yeah. There's just a ton of those things. Look at them. Stupid little tiny bugs. Gnats or something. Tiny. They're smaller than that, I think. Looks like most of them are just setting in it, though. Yeah, there's no runs in it. Damn near no orange peel. I mean, this thing is super smooth. The back, it's probably the orange peel you can see is probably because of the, I didn't sand it smooth enough in the back. So you guys can see what I can't see. The top. Yeah, and that looks flawless. I could just knock out the bugs, and I think it's a winner. I'm definitely not going to buff that. So if you notice, this gun's filthy, but the important parts are clean. That's usually how I end up taking care of them. Sometimes then it gets really bad, and I'll dunk it and clean it and get it all nice. But let's look at some other comparisons. This gun right here is clearly right up there with a really high-end gun. I want to say this thing is, and it's not a super high-end price. These are about $89. They are good. Okay, you can spray clear with it. You can spray base. It's not as nearly as good as this gun is. This one made it really effortless to get it on, super smooth. Air-wise, this uses more air than the Harbor Freight Spectrum, but it's definitely a finer spray than that is. So, and it just atomized the clear really well. It really just is amazing. Okay, so what I'm going to do personally is, I have this gun here. I'm going to move this one to primer, because these come with a 1.7, 1.4, 1.3, I think, all those different tips. So I can use this one in primer. I'm just going to switch her to a 1.7. It's a decent, really good gun for primer. It's definitely better than my Air Gunza, the Iwata Air Gunza that I have. Have not been happy with that gun. It always seems to have leaks here where the needle goes in. I can never get it to seem to work right. Either sticking, or the needle sticking, or it has a leak. One of the two. It never seems to work right. So Air Gunza I'm not real happy with. This one here I think would be great for primer. They probably also, Porphis probably has some good primer guns on their website. Check it out. So the question is this worth the 200? It's like 200 and I think 59 right now. And I would say if you were looking at a high-end gun, and they're like $400 to $1,000, but you don't want to spend $400 to $1,000, this is definitely on the list. I would say, if you're looking at, buying a Technopro Light or a SATA for $4,000, $5,000, okay, and you're just going to be doing enough stuff at home that it's not going to matter. As a professional, will this last? We don't know. I would buy it. Personally, if I was a pro, I'd buy this gun. And what I would do is, if I was a pro all the time, working in a body shop, I would have one of these, because it's really good to have several spray guns. So, okay, you can use one for just silvers all the time, so that if you don't get everything out of it, you know, the chunk of silver on a silver paint job is not going to look bad. Okay, so I would have a few of these versus having one or two of the other big name ones. This is really cool. These are really lightweight too. I really like that. Okay. This one is the Harbor Freight. What's that called? Not the HVLP, but the HE, and it uses a little less air. So that's a benefit to this, but you definitely sacrifice atomization. So if you have a bigger compressor, this one here is 1,000 times better than this. And I can do a nice paint job with this. Okay, but the effort it takes to do it is a lot less with this. This thing just atomized just super fine, sprayed it on. Even at a lower pressure, it's still atomized really good. At full pressure, full fan, flawless. You could probably spray something just completely flawless if you have a facility that you could do that in. If you're at home, you're probably not going to be able to run this thing at full pressure, full fan. I did the first coat full pressure, and there was a pretty good sized cloud going on, but then I turned it down from 2 bar to about 1.6 bar or somewhere in there. I was just going by the bar, so that's like 17, 18 pounds, something like that, 19, maybe 20, somewhere in there. The fog went way down with this, so you know, you could play with this gun and still get some decent results on a DIY guy at home. So pretty neat. I definitely like this Porphis company. The guns are amazing. You know, people always say China stuff's all garbage. I don't know. It's like the new Japan. They're coming up on some of this stuff. This thing's up there in quality, definitely. One of the really nice gun. All right, I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Please like, share, and subscribe.